The courtroom buzzed faintly with murmurs, the soft rustling of papers, and the metallic clinks of bailiffs adjusting their belts. Morning sunlight poured through the tall, arched windows of Fulton County Superior Court, casting gold slants over the polished wood and stone. Everyone knew this was going to be an ordinary hearing. A routine day. Just another stack of cases for Judge Cynthia Wakefield, the hard-nosed, pale-skinned gavel wielder infamous for cutting down defendants with words sharper than any blade. But within 7 minutes of that hearing start, everything changed. "Men like you don't belong here," she said, smacking the gavel once with a loud crack, "unless you're scrubbing the floors." The man standing before her didn't even flinch. His face remained calm, unreadable. He adjusted the cuffs of his charcoal suit, tucked the corner of his briefcase beside his shoe, and let the insult hang in the air. Then, slowly he smiled. Across the courtroom gallery, the air tensed like a string about to snap. Cynthia Wakefield didn't care. She rarely did. All she saw was a black man standing tall in a place where she had long believed only people like her should hold power. To her, he was just another disruption, a formality, another voice she planned to silence. "State your name for the record," she demanded, tilting her chin slightly. "Elias Porter," the man replied evenly. "Civil Rights Division, Department of Justice." Judge Wakefield narrowed her eyes. "Let me guess," she said with a theatrical sigh. Another baseless complaint. Another desperate plea from someone who thinks the law is their personal soapbox. She leaned back in her chair, tapping her pen. "Let me save you some time, Mr. Porter. This court doesn't entertain lawsuits built on fantasy." Elias remained composed. "I'm not here to file a lawsuit, Your Honor." Her lips curled. "Of course not. I should have known. This is about race, isn't it? Always is with you people." Gasps shot through the courtroom. The stenographer, a young woman in her 20s, hesitated, eyes darting to Elias, then back to the judge. Elias turned to her and asked, "Are you recording this?" She gave a tiny nod. "Good," he said, with the same calm edge that made her pulse flicker. Judge Wakefield, perhaps for the first time in years, blinked. "If this is some kind of circus act," she barked, "I'll have you escorted out." Elias opened his briefcase without a word. The room watched, breath held, as he retrieved a sealed envelope and handed it to the court bailiff. The bailiff glanced at the envelope, looked up at the judge with uncertainty, then passed it to her. She tore it open with a scoff, then stilled. Her eyes scanned the federal insignia. Her breath caught in her throat. "What is this?" she muttered. "A warrant," Elias said. "Signed by Judge Bernhard this morning. It charges you, Cynthia Wakefield, with obstruction of justice, gross judicial misconduct, and racially motivated sentencing practices under Title 18 U.S. Code." The judge's face went blank, like a window in a blackout. Then she laughed, loud and theatrical. "Is this a joke? You're joking, right?" Elias pulled something else from his pocket. A badge. Federal Investigator. Department of Justice. Civil Rights Task Force. That laughter died instantly. The air turned ice cold. "You're serious?" she choked. "You gave my brother, Anthony, 15 years for a nonviolent drug offense," Elias said. "There was evidence exonerating him. You dismissed it. You wouldn't even allow the jury to see it. He served 10 years before we finally got the conviction overturned." The courtroom hushed into something deeper than silence. A vacuum. Cynthia Wakefield tried to speak, but no sound came. Elias stepped closer, not in threat, but in finality. "This isn't about vengeance," he said. "It's about accountability." "Call security," she screamed, reaching for her gavel, but the bailiffs did not move. From the back of the room, 2 agents stepped in. One wore dark sunglasses. The other carried a slim laptop case and a body camera blinking red. "Agents Holloway and Rhodes, FBI," Elias said, "executing a federal arrest warrant." "Get away from me," Judge Wakefield stammered, but her voice had no weight behind it. "You're being charged with systematic abuse of authority, willful bias in sentencing, and dereliction of judicial duties. We have over 47 documented cases, Your Honor," Agent Holloway stated. "This is outrageous," she protested. I am a law in this room. Elias tilted his head. You were. One of the agents read her rights aloud as she was placed in handcuffs right there at the bench, in front of a stunned courtroom filled with defendants she'd once sentenced without hesitation, public defenders she'd humiliated, and families whose lives she'd upended. From the back row, a woman stood slowly mid-60s, dark blouse, eyes rimmed with tears. That's her, she said quietly. That's the woman who ruined my son's life. More people began rising, some in disbelief, some in applause. The moment felt surreal, cinematic even, but it was real, and very earned. As Cynthia Wakefield was escorted from the courtroom, her voice pleaded cracking now, desperate. I didn't mean I didn't know. Elias didn't follow. He stood at the front of the room, allowing the silence to return. You knew exactly what you were doing, he said. Every slur, every denial, every unjust ruling. You didn't just twist the law. You corrupted it. Outside, news crews had already assembled. Word spread like wildfire viral even before the story finished unfolding. A judge arrested in her own courtroom. A federal takedown led by a man whose life she'd derailed years before. Elias stepped outside onto the marble steps. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. He ignored them all until a small boy tugged at his sleeve. Are you a real hero? The boy asked. He was maybe 9, dressed in Sunday clothes, eyes wide with awe. Elias knelt. No, he said gently. I'm just someone who didn't stay silent. He reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a worn photo of his younger brother, Anthony, beaming beside a college graduation banner, long before prison stole his time. Elias smiled. This was for you, he whispered. He stood, faced the press, and said calmly, let this be a reminder to every institution that thinks it's above scrutiny. Power unchecked will always be challenged. If you sit in judgment of others, do it with fairness or not at all. One reporter called out, Mr. Porter, what would you say to people who think justice never shows up for people like them? Elias looked out across the sea of faces young, old, brown, black, and everything in between and replied, justice doesn't wear a robe. It doesn't need a gavel. It lives in every act of courage, every refusal to accept the unacceptable. And if someone tells you that you don't belong, stand taller. Show them you do. And with that, he walked back down the steps toward the street, his brother's memory etched into each stride.